Thanks for joining me, Anika. For everybody listening in and stuff, this is Anika Jackson. Anika Jackson is awesome. One of the more kind of interesting voices when it comes to empowering people through the medium that is the non-traditional, what did they call it? Terrestrial radio, the newest version in terms of like podcast, video podcasts. I know you've built your own brand doing that. You've built other people's brands doing that. Let's see. We have the executive director of the ICL Foundation. You've been doing work as a professor, podcast host at USC, and then you host Brand Amplified and have been doing so for years to help other people basically build and develop their kind of online persona.
Yeah.
Did I get everything right in there? Mouthful.
Yeah, that's that's enough probably to start. There's always I'm always doing a million projects.
What are your favorite ones from those three? What got you into each of those that really kind of drove your passion around them?
Yeah, well, Your Brand Amplified came out of my PR agency. I had built up a PR agency, had clients who wanted me to host podcasts for them because I have a lot of experience teaching, hosting, emceeing events. I had a radio show in Houston that was terrestrial and digital and Facebook Live. And what I realized pretty quickly was I'm doing this whole podcast for you. I'm getting all the guests. I'm doing all the interviews. My team is doing all the editing. I'm providing you with all these great marketing tools, but you're not utilizing them. I think they just didn't understand how big the medium could be and all of the use cases. So then my partner said, why don't you just start your own podcast? You love speaking to people. He's an editor in the film industry and does all that stuff. So he's like, I'll start editing it for you. Then it got bigger and he stopped. But that's really how I got into having my own podcast. And I wasn't very consistent with it at first. It was a hobby. And honestly, it was 3 years into the journey before I realized this is actually a business and I need to do more exploration. And I'd been doing a lot of different things. And I think I just didn't realize that I'd been preparing myself to then help other people produce their podcast, to create a course at USC, and do, all of the different things that I'm doing right now.
So of those, what do you think you mentioned like, doing it enough to realize it was a business. I oftentimes hear that as some of the issues with podcasts, right? It's like you give up before you actually get traction. Is that the biggest kind of pitfall that biggest mistake they make?
100%. They think they need to spend a ton of money. Sometimes I've heard of people spending $25,000, $50,000 building a beautiful studio before they even record one episode. Don't do that, please. Use Riverside, use Zoom, use your laptop, have a good mic, maybe a ring light. I have fancy headphones, but because my mic is so good, I usually don't use them. You don't need a lot to start, but the important thing is to be consistent. I mean, in 2023, it took somebody else in the world of podcasting to say, that your podcast is actually doing really well. You're this percentage on listen notes. And because I was saying, gosh, I've had so many requests for guests. I have enough content that I could publish several times a week or every day. And that's actually what I do now. And I still have 100+ person wait list. They're all phenomenal guests. So that's really where I started looking at the numbers and started getting serious about, okay, how do I engage with my audience? How do I grow this? I want to be able to help other podcasters understand the really indie DIY way of doing it. Then I found a good team. So now all I have to do is engage with all of the inbound traffic, which I am going to get a VA for soon, because I get 20 to 30 podcast requests a day for people who want to be interviewed.
Wow.
And that even responding to them takes a lot of time. So, then I just have to show up, record. My team handles the rest. I help with a few things, maybe the name, or if we need other links included for the guest or whatever, right? But then they do the whole thing, and we have a really seamless process that's easy to replicate. That is really, most of us are not big names. Most of us are not going to get big deals when we start, right? But I want people to understand that from day one, I can help you understand how to engage with an audience, how to monetize, how to use all of the different marketing tools, advertising tools, and that it has played into my success. I streamline using AI tools. I have a great team. I also do spend, I make sure I'm marketing the podcast. I also make sure the guests are well equipped with everything they need. I also do spend a little bit of money on advertising every month because you can't just engage with the same audience, right? You have to have other ways to grow. And that has led me to many opportunities. It's led me to be able to speak at conferences, AI conferences, and podcast conferences, and others. It's led me to create courses at USC at the graduate level on podcasting. It's led to me being a Webby Awards judge, and I could keep on going. But it's opened up this whole world of opportunity. I'm also on an ad network, so I monetize through advertising. I'm now talking to a pretty large group about being their official podcast, which would mean then we bring in their sponsors, which gives me more access to more money to do all the things I want to do that are kind of on the back burner, because it's never ending, right? You can keep iterating, you can keep improving. And I try to make slight changes every 50 to 100 episodes to improve my process, improve the way I host, improve the guest experience.
Well, so you mentioned that you have a backlog. How long does it take to record 50 to 100 episodes? Like, what's the cadence in terms of how many that, how quickly do you bust out 50 to 100 episodes?
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at my other screen right now. I do, some weeks I have 10 interviews for people on my podcast.
Do you get brain dead from it? Does
No,
it fire
it's
you up, or is it
no,
entertaining?
it's energizing. It's so energizing. I love learning from all of my guests. And
Nice.
I get really, really high quality guests too, which
Mm-hmm.
is amazing and inspiring to me. It doesn't mean they all, some of them have sold companies for hundreds of millions of dollars or helped a company grow to $1 billion plus in revenue. Others have smaller, less financially successful stories, but still really successful in their approach to life, to their brand, to how they pivoted in their place of work, all things that I think really inspire the audience as well.
Mm-hmm.
And but I learn something from every single guest, which is why I'm so passionate about it and why I love it so much.
I like that. What do you find is the most tiring? What is the biggest pain point in pushing out? That's a lot of content. Like,
It is a
damn.
lot of content. I probably should have a few more people helping, because
Mm-hmm.
even having, but again, I pay for everything myself. I
Mm-hmm.
get ad revenue, but it's delayed because it's
Sure.
on the kind of typical sales
Mm-hmm.
cycle. So this is where AI tools are really going to start coming into play more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Agents and having different agents doing different parts of the work. That's something I'm really excited about. And I love the fact that we can streamline so many things. Like I use Zeotag for accessibility for my episodes. So we take the video episodes, upload them to Zeotag. It creates short form, it's long form content, but it's divided into chapters, tagged. So then I can actually push that out to my audience members who might be visually impaired, hearing impaired, have a neurodivergency, because then they can look at little chapters, right? Or if somebody's just searching, doesn't want to look at 500 something episodes to find the best information on updates on SEO or now generative search and all the other things that we're doing, so they can just look for those keywords throughout all my episodes, and just those snippets from all of the experts I have on will come up.
It's all the transcription. I used to remember we used to do ours. This was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, even just the transcription per episode, I think was like $200. Sound design guy, $400-500 per episode. That stuff's fully pretty much automated at this point, isn't it? Like, I mean, I guess I'd wondered how good is it at the chapter development and recognizing that stuff. I assume it's pretty good.
It's really, really good. Of course, it uses a lot of AI tools in the background. Sure. It's also good for me as a professor, because I could put all of my videos from classes into it and students can search more easily. So it's good on a lot of use cases. I mean, but then I also use FlowSend, I use Simplified, I use all the chat bots, my team uses a lot of different tools to be able to create shorts and all of that. And so, yeah, gone are the days. Now, of course, human interaction is important.
Sure.
The pieces that AI may choose to have for video might not be the pieces that I think are most important to pull out of a conversation. So we can go into a program like Simplified. We can highlight the exact text that we want to show up as video, right? And then we can also add B-roll and all of those things. There's a lot more tools I want to play with, but I feel like starting with a basic tech stack of tools, learning them, deciding which ones have the best capabilities for what you're trying to achieve is the most important thing.
What would be an example of those? Like, if you're naming a handful, like that you would go, okay, you need.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with FlowSend as an example, but it sounds like that's one of them.
Yeah, Flow Send is one for sure.
That's distribution.
It's actually not distribution.
Mhm.
It's another version of the transcripts, short
Okay.
form written content,
Hmm.
right? So it's a counterpart to everything else. Simplified.com is kind of an 5-in-1 AI solution, plus you can push it to social media. So that's really helpful. We create the reels in there, and then we can immediately program them to social media, which, any good podcast episode, you're going to get
You have to be a post
tens of,
in that
if
way.
not, 100 pieces of content. So you want to make sure to schedule those out, not just the immediate day. I use Matrix.ai. That is more of brand development. So if you're thinking about an idea, if you
Hmm.
don't have a website and an idea built out, a brand, you could put in, I want to do a podcast on XYZ. It'll pop out, okay, here's some customer personas. Here are their pain points that you should think about when you're putting in your keywords. Here's some potential advertising. Here's a content strategy for pushing your podcast out to the world. And here's some competitors that you may want to look at. It includes links to all the research. I think that's fantastic. And that's been a huge improvement in these different tools that we use. Is before there, and we still hear hallucinations. Yes, a
Yep.
lot of the graphic capability is not there yet.
Yep.
But the fact that you can get links and that they're actual links and will take you to the right articles now instead of being pulled from who knows
The
where.
ether, they make up the
Yeah.
URL. They definitely used to do that. They still do it from time to time. I've noticed. I had one that got me the other day, 2 days ago, where I was going like, "Yep, that's what I'm looking for." Click the link, and it's like goes to some website / page that does not even exist. You go, yeah, right. They're still working on it, but the development of the strategy is still pretty good, right?
Yeah.
The ability to move kind of quickly on that. We mentioned tools around editing. I was talking about attribution, cross-channel attribution tools. That's one of the biggest pain points. Like 2025, I'm finding out is kind of becoming the year of not just what, but why. I want explainable strategies. Like the being able to tell me to do something is one part of it, but I do want to come back and I want to revisit the output of what I did and how well it worked and why I should do the next thing. Right? I want anticipatory interventions. If you want,
Yeah.
I'm a nerd, so let's see if I can come up with a
Let's
better
nerd
name
it up.
for those. But we find that the nature of how do we make our tools more engaging through proactive recommendations. So a lot of our enterprise AI agents that we've been working on, like we have to go, hey, you don't just answer the question. You need to anticipate what they're doing with the information or whatever else. And then how do you anticipate, hey, can I do one other helpful thing and compress them into one response, right? So, oh yeah, you wanted me to look for your competitors. I found your competitors, but also I've done this. Tell me about like the tools that you've used to solve that, because oftentimes I know back in the day you'd get the, hey, I got X number of listeners, and then the so what comes up. Is that more? Is that less? What's the average growth rate? And which tools have you found that made the how do you modify your kind of your media plan and your distribution? Which ones have done the best job at actually helping you guide the next steps with data?
You know what? That is such a good question. And I don't think there's a perfect solution out there yet. When I look at my podcast metrics, I'm on Podmatch. I use that for my PR clients. And it says, oh, you have so many downloads per episode. I'm like, I know I have a lot more than that because I see the metrics in the back end, right? And the metrics I see on the back end of my hosting site are taken directly. I mean, they are IAB 2.0 certified. But then if I look at listen notes is something people hold up as a gold standard. But again, it says most of my audience is in the Philippines. I'm like, that's actually not true. I can see exactly where people are, right? One tool that I really like is Podgagement. So that tool shows where you rank on different charts. So you can see where you go up, where you go down, and then I can tie that into is it an episode that performed better? Why did it change? Why was 1 week or one? I mean, it changes day to day. So you can be, I can be number 40 in Apple Podcast Marketing in the United States, and the next week I might be, or the next couple of days I might be number 52. It all just depends on if the content is resonating. Their pod SEO is not only a name of a company, but also something that we all really need to consider, because you can actually track what keywords people are looking up when they're looking for podcasts to listen to and which ones your podcast ranks on. So that's something I'm just diving more and more into. But the fact that that website uses all of our data aggregated, obviously from machine learning, to give us this information much quicker, right, than we're used to. Think about doing research, data analytics, the time that we spend pulling from different tools usually. And now we don't have to do that. It's amazing. So I really love being able to look at those two to see, okay, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What can I pivot? Or what do I really need to show more of? Honestly, at this point, it hasn't changed my strategy. I don't have seasons because I just have so much content. I can't choose one topic because I have ADHD and I like to talk about all the topics, but also every single guest is unique. So it does make it a little more challenging probably for me than maybe other podcasters who have a niched down topic. But it makes it fun and it's what I want to do. So it's what I'm going to keep doing and it's worked so far. So
in terms of, just out of curiosity, they have some new tools that people keep showing me and you react for me.
Okay.
If one more person shows me that damn Gemini podcast creation tool where they can point it at one page of text and it writes a whole podcast, do you see any practical use for that? Like, it's one where I just go, like you've mentioned the logic on accessibility. I could see accessibility now that you mention it. Do you find any other practical application for those? Like, for what it's worth, I see a lot of people where they go, it's a weird phenomenon. If they see AI generated content and they don't know that it's AI generated, they actually really like it. But if they do detect that it's AI generated, they think it's cheating. They think they've been snookered, and they actually have a very negative response to it. And that podcast stuff to me is one of those that's still kind of in the uncanny valley type of thing. Like you hear it once, it's okay for a few seconds, and then you keep going. Wait a minute. People go, well, yeah, you can make podcasts. And I just go, that doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. Oh, it's that adage that goes back to, are you taking from the sum of all averages of human knowledge?
Ooh, I like that premise. I
Or
harp on this a lot, but I've never heard it phrased that way. I like that.
I say that a lot. That's one of the phrases I use often with, if you're just using artificial intelligence and particularly Gen AI, which is a tiny little piece of it that people, but obviously people think it's a much bigger piece. If you're just using tools and you're not having any creative input, then it is literally the sum of all human average intelligence. It's not giving anything new. So the only use case I've seen where I like AI in a podcast is the AI breakdown where the host talks about the fact, okay, now we're going into his AI segment, right? Where because he doesn't want to talk the whole 20 minutes. So he just types it up, it spits it out. But I've seen people unsuccessfully try to use their, an AI version of themselves and themselves in podcasting. It's funny. I'm thinking back to Max Headroom. If I'm aging myself, right?
We still haven't figured out who that was, right? That's still like one of the bigger mysteries of the 80s, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, so much. That was novel. So it was fun. But it's not necessarily that you trusted. It was just fun, right? I would hate for somebody to think that they're listening to me and a guest talking about an issue with my experience and my guest's expertise in this subject matter, and then find out that they were listening just to AI. This is an area where I think you still have to have human intervention, we are the creators, right? We have strategy, we have all this knowledge, we've done all these weird things in our lifetimes that create the sum of our experiences. And you don't get that out of a normal, like if you're just going to put something in Notebook LLM and, have it create something. But I will say an area where that is useful is if you have a digital clone that has your knowledge base. And I am playing around with that right now with Delphi. And people say, wow, it really sounds like you. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, because you can push to not just read, you can ask questions to my digital clone. It'll answer, and I have put over 2.3 million words in there, not just my words, but also all of my interviews, things I've written, things I've done, courses that I've taught, workshops I've given. So then somebody could go to that and they're getting my knowledge. So they can type in questions, they can trust it. And then if they want to schedule more time with me, I think that's a much more effective way. And I think it's what everybody who's in a small business needs to do in the future, because then it's just not a chat bot, although there is obviously a time and place for that, but it is them talking to you with the clone acknowledging I'm a digital representation of this person, right?
I was talking to our CMO yesterday about this. We had a big client, they pointed out, they're like, well, one of the reasons we were looking at and understanding and kind of going through, we were checking, doing all your security, your tech, and everything else, but also you're a relatively small company. And I was like, kind of depends. And they went, well, we're just used to really established. And, like some people are going like, well, are you a big enough company? Essentially was like a critique. I was going, okay, you guys are big, like you're a nationally recognized, organization, we'll say. But like simultaneously, I'm like, you're not safe. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, even the nature of the task that we're working on is to save them dozens and dozens of millions of dollars in ad budget. And a big part of, again, having this realization with my CMO yesterday, we're just going, every time we expected that we would grow, we found that we were using technology and we saved ourselves an additional hire. We could automate that task. It was those. And to your point, the drudgery now is largely in the recurring annoying tasks, and those are the ones that are going away. And the things that I do find that we're doing more of is solving really, really novel problems. One of the real insights that we've talked about for years, I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, we're going, what does the org look like in the future? And we're going, no middle management. That's not necessary. Like, everybody in middle management just takes all of the data and they make a decision from their underlings. Hand me the stuff and I'll make. That's totally
Microsoft just, I think I read today, they cut 6,000, or yesterday they cut 6,000, or they are cutting 6,000 middle managers.
Yeah.
For that exactly what you're saying. I mean, this is
right. The org in the future is like, it's not necessarily departments. It's like you have one smart person doing biz dev, one smart person doing marketing, one smart person doing HR or whatever, but they're relatively smart. They probably have a little bit of an AI workforce underneath them that are doing a lot of, again, repetitive tasks. And then again, they're acting as a kind of a curator on this. But one of those yesterday, I was like, I don't know why we didn't think this would happen to us, but we were talking about it. Like,
interesting.
We're probably not going to get that much bigger no matter how well we do, right? Like, $1 billion. I found a leaderboard yesterday of the largest small companies where you're going, these are unicorns that have less than 12 people, where it's one of them going, I don't know why we never really thought about it happening or being us that did it, but we're just one of the many, 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 many others that are doing the same thing. And I think that, again, there's going to be that explosion of many additional companies, but with very small teams, smart people, small teams running them. And that's what you want, is like, hey, I don't want anybody overlapping with anybody else's work at all. It's just not necessary. I need them each solving new problems, not the same old ones, right?
Yes. I love exactly what you're saying. I mean, even a few years ago, I started a PR firm during the pandemic. I overstaffed, probably because I had clients coming in, left and right, but dealing with people in multiple time zones sometimes, and obviously mental health.
Years off your life, right?
Yeah. And then, okay, do I need to have paperwork for all of these different states? What kind of employee are they? Who needs a mental health break? Who's doing what? You kind of solve some of that. Yes, I still want to have some team members, but now I can be a smaller shop. And that also really helps with the bottom line. So the exciting thing is it creates a whole new economy of small businesses right there. I mean, small businesses are already the backbone, but then this creates the opportunity for more people to take that chance that they might not have.
Potentially anti-fragile too, right? We did the same thing. We went to business school together, and it was an international business school. Everybody traveled there, like 35 countries represented or whatever. Everybody was from all over the place. And we said we never wanted to have a headquarters. And so we never established a headquarters. Nice. And then when the pandemic hit and everyone shut down, commercial real estate tanked or whatever, we were just going like, we didn't really even notice from that perspective, because my team is and always has been all over the place, even though I do have a couple people like generally locally, but we've always just went, I want to hire disciplined people that can work from home because I want to work from home, right? One of those where you get, like, at the time, it didn't seem like that big of a benefit, but actually one of the big reasons that we did well through the pandemic was specifically because of that. Like, everybody's zigging. Let's zag.
I wanted to ask you about when you're working with enterprise clients, are you finding that it is really coming from the top down, or is it coming from the bottom up?
So it's both. It's a pain because we've actually tried to distribute and actually attack both. We very much focus on early adopters. Like, some of our tech is actually designed to recognize them in a crowd. And what you're doing is very much change management. It is telling people, and even if they like it, dislike it, you have to deal with both of them. The committees that are buying are big enough. that you actually have to find, attract, figure out who your internal champions are, the ones that are most likely to adopt it.
Yeah.
You get them to use it, but then you go to the other ones and you have to ask them why they aren't, and you have to understand that problem. And if you don't actually solve for both, you never get the people in between them. And so for that reason, you almost have to go into the groups and the buying committee, recognize which people are which, and then approach and attack both of them separately.
Wow.
You have to have air cover from the executive team, or you'll never almost get anything. But the way around that is if you make something that is simple enough from a DIY perspective that you can get, like, so as an example, we built enterprise AI agents.
Yeah.
So the executives could go, okay, I want it programmed with my stuff. I need security protocols. It has to have a sign-off process so that, like, you can't just return anything that you find in a database. It actually has to go through some sort of check to make sure that it's safe data to share. But then simultaneously went, okay, we need other agents that people can sign up and develop themselves, because I want them to be able to go, oh, Wretch, like we've had some of those organizations where they found out and heard our name from someone else that was already using it in the organization. They went, oh, I've played with the Wrench stuff already. I've got mine. Come and check it out or whatever. And that's worked really well. Walmart did that originally.
Wow.
Their whole strategy was grocery stores. Like, one of the former reasons we have monopoly legislation. Walmart's strategy is, I'm not going to go head to head against any of these larger grocers. I'm going to go into the small towns,
Mm-hmm.
work there where there isn't competition, and then eventually have enough market share that you can't ignore me.
Yep.
Intercom did the same thing. They basically went, we're never going to compete with like a HubSpot or whatever doing an enterprise down approach. So we're going to make it really easy to install our tools for a bunch of people without having to call and confirm everything with the IT department. And then we'll get enough saturation that you can't ignore us. You kind of have to do both. And it's a pinch, if you want to call it that. The amount of change management, to answer your question way longer than you wanted though, is not to be ignored. It is one of those where I'm just like, this is not like, hey guys, we're gonna, it's not a minor change. It really is a significant change in behavior and lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that has been eye-opening at how much work that part is. Because even if your tool works, you still have to get people to play with it, like it, use it, engage with it.
To that point, I think that's where I'm actually speaking, because the ICL Foundation and we have an online school, the ICL Academy, that's middle school and high school. And I'm talking to the curriculum director about how do we integrate more AI into our curriculum, and not just in terms of helping customize curriculum, but also in terms of helping students understand these tools. And at USC, I've told my students, we're approaching digital media from an AI first perspective. So the first assignment I completely redid. Most of them didn't get too confused, luckily. I feel like it was actually simpler, and it's fun to play with AI. So I had them actually it was about ad tech, and I had them do an exercise using a couple tools to see if it helped their process, because that's one thing I heard is it was a lot of theory. The previous assignment would have been research this, and this, and talk about why you would use this. I'm like, no, let's get your hands dirty. And I want to do that because then the workforce comes in prepared, knowing how to use these tools whenever management's saying, oh, I don't know about this or that. And they can raise their hand and say, I've tried this, and this. Here's what I think would work for our business, and elevate themselves. And so it's really exciting.
It's a good move. Man, we had the first time this week where we decided not to hire someone because they weren't touching AI. And
Ooh.
It was one of those, so like, it's happened before, and like with some of it, we want to see someone utilizing it in their process, because again, like, new normal type stuff.
Yep.
But this was one of the first times we just went, no. We didn't isolate it as like a thing we were looking for, but the more we talked to them, the more apparent it was. And it turned into a red flag. I'm like, something feels off. And I realized, I'm like, well, and this was why, because I'm not like AI for everything all the time. I'm not that at all. But I went, if they don't have AI, they don't have a demonstrable data-driven system that allows them to actually check their own work, turn it into a feedback loop, and improve on it. And if they're not doing that, I'm not going to hire someone that can't teach, train, or transfer their knowledge to anything else. That is now a huge red flag and a liability for an organization.
Wow.
Right? Going, ooh, it was one of the first times we're like, that ultimately, it wasn't just because they aren't using AI, but I'm like, the people that are going to do well in the kind of next 5-10 years, probably even less, 3 to 5 years. You have to be that curator that actually has that track record, checks that track record, interacts. Like to your point, that's the one I've got. My kid is an 8-year-old. ChatGPT is a remarkable babysitter. It's the nicest. They'll hold my phone and just chat back and forth, like
Oh
converse.
my
They have a
gosh.
voice mode. It's a phenomenal conversationalist on that. And I was going, okay, cool. We need to, like you said, most people think LLMs are all AI, right? They're like, that's the entire category. I'm like, no, 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 no. They need to know pros and cons, do this with that type of decision making when they bring it in.
My daughter is in high school. She's not using AI. She has friends who use it, but now we have conversations. For instance, you and I talked about I'm getting my MBA with a specialty in AI right now.
I love that.
I just did a whole bunch of different projects. For one of my final, we had 3 essays to write, but instead of writing them, my classmate and I turned one into an old-time radio show with really bad accents. It's not perfect by any means, but I posted about it on LinkedIn to say, here's this tech stack that we use to create this and fine tune the script. And here's where we got the announcer's voice from, which was an AI tool, right? And here's in the sound effects and different things. So we really wanted to make it feel like an old time thing. One of the other ones I did was a song, and I had help with Claude writing the song, which was the essay. Well, first I wrote the essay, then we fine tuned it, then we turned it into a song. Then I put it into Marika, and I gave it very few prompts. Just I want a female vocalist, and I want it to sound like a cross between country music and the Eagles. And it gave me 2 versions, and I wanted to be upbeat. You fine tune a few things. It gave me 2 versions, and one of them was one of our final projects. And so she has to do a song for, I think, her AP psych class for something. And she's like, oh, if I was thinking what you would do, and you would put it into this system and this system, like, great. So you're not using the tools, but you at least know what the process is to use them. So
I like that. To the callback to your statement earlier, the trick with using those tools is oftentimes realizing it's the sum of the averages, but it also means that you won't or shouldn't produce anything that's below average as a result, right? The opportunity is like, get to an average thing and now start putting the panache on it that really makes it special, right? It's not a start and finish with the average version. It's like, no, 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 this gives you that platform. It lets you get, like, what was his name? Peter, I can't think of the guy. Peter Diamandis. The 0 to 1 is the most difficult stage of building anything, right? Like, you always hear the first million is the hardest or whatever, but it's like, yeah, getting to 2 million from 1 million, that's nowhere near as difficult as getting from 0 to 1, right? And utilizing those tools and understanding the process to going, okay, well, now I see how it's put together, and I get to figure out what makes something really cool and special. I like that premise. We did some studies in behavioral sciences that found the impact of surprise emotionally is exponential. When you're in traffic and someone cuts you off, even though you totally expect it should happen, it's a surprise how it happens, if you will. Road rage is the impact of surprise in your driving scenario, and your exponential response is road rage. So when you can actually figure out, okay, what does the average look like? Can I take something and make it really, really relevant, but also novel? You become, and you give something that's basically, it's the makings of both most of the nasty reviews if you get from any product online, but it's also the result of word of mouth. And basically people go like, how do you make viral? And it's like, no one really knows, because novel, whatever is novel, changes all the time. But the formula is, can I get something that's emotionally relevant, recognized, but also novel in the same message, and do it simultaneously? And that's a good way to actually program it in. Anyways, sorry, got me.
Again, I'm just going to keep saying how much I love all of your statements, because for virality, people think, okay, I need to have a fire, B-roll, and then I need to have this B-roll and that. And it's like, no, that actually, you still have to have good content, right? Or content that like you said, surprises and engages people.
Any other big tricks? Anything else that you've worked on that you found actually worked better? Any other like guidance and advice? I mean, if anyone is an expert in terms of like, what do you do and what don't you do? Like, if you were to give like kind of the top 3 recommendations for people that were developing their own podcast-based online business, what would be the top things that you would recommend? What tools would you suggest that they started with?
Definitely Maestrix.ai. So that one, and it's maestrix.ai, was started by Guillaume Demortier, a friend of mine in San Francisco, who worked at creative agencies for a very long time on major brands, but found outside the agency world, he had a role, right? He was part of a team of people, so he couldn't take credit for a whole ad campaign. So then he said, well, okay, now I can't get the work I want based on this. So what else can I do? So he turned his expertise into creating Matrix, which gives you an overview. Again, that's the one where you put in your website or you put in your idea.
Oh, that one. Okay.
And it'll populate
It
things.
basically
And
builds
so,
kind of the planning, competitors, suggestions surrounding it. Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
that is an amazing tool to start with. Look at listen notes, check keywords, see who your competitors are, see what you can do to differentiate yourself, and have a really clear sense of why you're starting a podcast and that you can be consistent with it. So, people sometimes want to start one just to make money. Well, okay, but do you have a hook that's good enough to accomplish that? And do you know that it is going to take a while to build up the audience and engagement to get the sponsors and the monetization? Are you using it to network? Are you using it to promote your product? There's so many use cases. So I think having a brand, which you can do partly with Matrix, and then just going through a brand blueprint exercise, knowing exactly what your why is, how you're going to achieve it, knowing your audience, all of that stuff is so important. And then your competition. Again, Matrix will give you some of that, but Listen Notes will give you a much wider range of what does it take to get to a top 5%, 10%, 5%, 1.5% podcast. Because most of the ones who are, I used to be, it might have been a glitch because I was at like the top 0.5% for a little bit. Now I'm top 1.5%. And I think most of the ones who are better than that or bigger are the ones that are celebrity driven, have big budgets. We do what we can, and don't worry about it. Like if you mess up on your first few episodes or you don't know how to be a good host and you're nervous, you'll get better with time. Just keep doing it and put those episodes out. You can always delete them later, but you just need to make sure you have consistent content coming out, that you're training yourself, that you're getting comfortable with it. And then the sky's the limit.
I love it. Anika Jackson, where can people find you online?
LinkedIn is my favorite platform. My name, or brandamplified.com, is a source of all truth for myself as well. Although for personal branding, I am about to also have I have like all the URLs saved for my own website. And so I'm going to start enacting that so that I can put my Delphi and all of my other fun stuff there.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. I hugely appreciate talking to you. You are a wealth of information. You are fun to talk to as well.
You are too.
It's always a pleasure. I appreciate it. Cool. Thank you. And if you can, come and find Anika Jackson on her LinkedIn profile online, and we will talk to you again soon.